This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve you, to bring these men and women on so they can tell their stories totally unedited, how they live them, so you can get a better appreciation for what it is the men and women law enforcement actually do. I am your host, Old Gingerface. Very happy to be here, guys. Thank you for all the recent rating and reviewing. I don't say it enough. I gotta self-advocate more. I'm being told by people, fans, if you can, join the YouTube, the Instagram, all this stuff I never talk about. It is important. The podcast itself is doing great, is gaining traction, seems like all the time, getting more and more downloads. But the social media aspect, I'm rather weak on. You guys all know that I am still a full-time copper, and I do work a lot of overtime and everything we need to do to actually make this career work, to actually pay. So I don't have a ton of time with the social medias and stuff like that. You've seen me try my adorable little attempts at having short videos and trying to point you to all the little things. I suck at it. I don't like doing it, and I'm slow at doing it. So someday when I have more free time, I will get into it. So please go follow those things. Like the show, share this show with other people. That's where like all the guests come from. Is there's a copper out there listening, and he tells a friend, and then they know a guy that wouldn't mind coming on. I mean, my working theory is that all cops, doesn't matter where you work, if you worked as a cop long enough, you have the stories to come on the show. But not all cops want to do that. Not all cops are good talkers, honestly. I mean, the ones that come on the show really are. Like the episodes, no credit to me, are incredible. Like the guests that come on have some stories, and they relate them really, really well. They're fantastic. But there isn't, not every cop wants to come on here and do it. So the more you guys talk about it, the better off the show is. So I would appreciate getting the word out, doing the rating, reviewing. And of course, if you love the show and you listen to all the free content, you can go ahead and join the Patreon to support the show. If you do sergeant level or above, I will shout you out on the podcast, and you will gain my undying love until the end of time. So that's my spiel. Rest assured, the show will remain free. The idea is that the main episodes that come out from the show will remain free, so the maximum amount of people will hear the stories from the men and women of law enforcement to get a better idea of what the job's actually like. So without further ado, the guest today I'm very excited for. He's got a lot going on. I think he's even got another appearance after this coming up because of what's going on in his area of expertise and where he works. So he's got 14-year veteran, NYPD, highly decorated. He's currently made it his life's mission to expose lies and hypocrisy of elected officials and corrupt law enforcement leaders, which we all like being done, which is hard to do, and you have to be a bit brave to do that. He's also the host of the Sal Greco Show and also the YouTube channel and on Rumble, the Sal Greco Show. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Sal Greco. Sir!
Great to be here. I love that you call yourself the ginger face. That's a good one. I like that one. That might be a good moniker or gift for you.
You got to own it. You know what I mean? I don't have the nice skin you got. I don't get golden brown in the summer. I just turn pink.
Yeah. Well, Massachusetts is definitely not as sunny as Florida. No matter how hot it could get, it's not as hot as Florida.
Yeah, it's a good place for gingers. Growing up, one of my best buddies, and still to this day, big Portuguese family, and they had a pool, so we'd go over there, and his dad was like a wicked ball buster, and he'd be like, "Hey, Stevie, make sure you put on your sunblock. You don't got that nice golden skin like my boys." I'm all pink, and his kids, they were half Portuguese, half Italian, so of course their skin was like nice, and they could get a tan. So
of course,
the redheads, we're an unrecognized minority, Sal. We're always.
See that? Listen, I got to be honest with you. My grandmother had at 97 years old, had a full set of red hair, and she was 100% Sicilian. In fact, in the DNA test, I don't have any trace of anything that would lead you to believe why she would have red hair, or maybe I'm not Sicilian. No, in fact, I showed up 90% Sicilian, or was that Southern Italian in me.
Yep.
So
yeah.
It says I was Irish or anything like that. So
I believe it, brother. I went to college with a kid that he was half Italian, half Irish, and he had orange hair. So we all just assumed like, oh, you got that from the from the mixed side of your family? And he's like, actually, no. He goes, it was the Italian side that had the red hair.
Yeah, we do have redheads in Italy. People
Yeah.
just don't. I guess it's ignored.
I love it. It's great. It's great because you certainly have better food.
Yeah, well, of course, food. You always want. That's why they say to marry an Italian woman or an Italian man if you're a woman, because we always make good cooks.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. Same with the Portuguese. The Portuguese have up in the Northeast, anyways. There's a lot of them in New Bedford, a lot in Massachusetts. But to me, looking in, it's similar. They have they have linguiça and chorizo and all these special sausages and special breads, and it's good. It's better. Anything beats boiled potatoes.
There was also a big Portuguese community. I believe it was in New Jersey, because I used to hang out somewhere out in New Jersey. And it was, but when you say Portuguese too, Brazilians speak Portuguese, so you'll have a little bit of both. They like to hang out with each other, and I would meet Portuguese people there. It's always fun meeting other people from different places, and most of the time we get along. The only time there would be some slight discussion or differently would be obviously politics.
Yeah.
One guy in particular, you like that one guy, they think that guy's the devil, so then they start looking at you different. It's not like I'm a Mets fan and you must be a Red Sox fan, so that's it. It's over. We must come to fisticuffs about it. That's how they treat this with politics, and I never did. I went to the game yesterday. I went to the Marlins game. I love going to Lone Depot Park. It's one of my things. I love sports, so I went to Lone Depot Park. Great atmosphere, but here's the catch. My number one team in life is the New York Mets. I started as a baseball and a Met fan as a little kid. I had a little bat brought to my house. I said Mets on it, and that was it. And they were a great team in the 80s. I mean, we beat the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So I was a huge Met. I've always been a huge Met fan, but I'm sitting there at a Marlins game. You know why? I just like baseball, and the stadium is great. I've been to many of them. I haven't made my way to Fenway, maybe someday, but I've been to all the stadiums up, in the National East, the NL East, and I think Lone Depot Park is my favorite because it's just a nice atmosphere. Yesterday was Nicaraguan. The Nicaraguans are out there. It's Appreciation Day. Last time they had, I believe, the Venezuelans. They had Colombia. This is like, you will just sit there and go, wow, this is unbelievable. People having fun, singing, dancing. It's more of the stadium is an attraction for everybody to just get together and be like, we don't even care who's playing. And it's so loud that you hear it towards the field, the Pachanga band playing. And it's great. And this was going on yesterday. Then I had instead of having espresso, I'm a Sicilian, I'm very big with that. But now I switch it up and have the cafecito over there in center field.
Yeah.
So that was just great. And I just get away from things because life can get depressing and you get angry. I mean, I'm sure everybody's seeing right now what's happening in New York City with the police department and the mayor. Just get away from it. You go to a baseball game and enjoy it. And you have all these people you see. Yesterday was Nicaraguan. Last week were the Venezuelans. We were all getting along. It was great. Everyone was having a big party in the state. Nobody cares about politics. So that's what I like. I like things to return to that kind of an atmosphere where it's not so bad to just try to get along with each other, right? And just forget about things.
Yeah, isn't it funny how if you actually go out there and live life, obviously like you're doing, you can see clearly that like one certain party in our country is telling us that we all hate each other and it's unfair for one of them and that we should be at each other's throats. You actually go out there and live life, and it's the spice of life, all different cultures and hanging out. It's really not reality, but they want it to be.
It's not. It really isn't. If you keep watching that kind of stuff, it's very divisive, especially many major media. You always hear it. Like they talk about they're basically they want to guide you into what box they think that you should be in. So they're kind of giving you opinion, but it's opinion where it's an alternate fact of reality, and they want you to run with it. So they want you to be whatever they tell you. It's almost like they're just going off a script versus just report things the way they are. And then when you're done with the teleprompter, whatever it is you're reading, get out of there and go to a game. Hey, you know what we do out here too? Out in South Florida, we have highlight, which is a huge thing for me. I'm sure you heard about it. It was big back in the day in Connecticut. They had a fronton up there.
Yeah, in the 80s, we had the scoops and stuff, like the plastic ones for yard sports.
The fastest sport in the world. You should check it out, Highlight League. They have their own YouTube. They have the website. My friends have a team there. They got the Highlight Chargers. We got the Highlight Warriors. We have the Highlight Devils. My friend Mafio owns a team. You know him. He's a big musician. This is like the place to be on Friday nights during the season. It's about 4 to 5 months in the winter, which is now, and then 4 to 5 months in the spring. And this is what I'm saying. Get away from things. You go to highlight, watch this thing. Everyone sits down, and all of a sudden, you have a little bit of camaraderie. And with that, kind of like in a police department where, your squad or, your squad or your platoon, you're all in the locker room, you're hanging out, you're just shooting the breeze. And all of a sudden, all that angst and that anger you have, maybe even towards each other, it dissipates. And that's what you need. You need decorum in the world. But you don't have, because we don't have accountability on the other end from these bad guys or these corrupt guys. And that seems to be the issue. And that's what I'm centered myself on, is exposing that. Because I like to go back to everybody get a highlight. One of the guys that owns the team, I'm not going to lie to you, he's a huge Kamala Harris, Joe Biden person, but we actually have the same ideas when it comes to business and how to run the league. And we're sitting there having fun, and we don't even talk about, who cares about politics? Look at this guy, look at that. And that's how life was when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, and it completely changed now. And it needs to, you need to have a healthy balance, I'd say.
Yeah, I've said that a few times in the podcast. I remember my father was like a local policeman and knew a lot of people, and he'd have like chili parties, get a keg of beer, and it was like politics. It was like a Coke and Pepsi thing. Politics came up, you knucklehead. That was it. No one was trying to go for your job. Oh, what did you say? How about I call your supervisor tomorrow? It's like,
yeah, that's what it's become. They're like oh, I'm gonna get you in trouble. Roger Stone, is my friend. Roger Stone tells a story best. He says that he tells me, he goes, listen, back in the day I lived in D.C. and I worked for the Republican Party, worked for Ronald Reagan, and we have these elections. And you go, look, I had many friends that sat down at many places, like the Palms. He would sit there with Democrats, many of them. Even the head of the Congress back then, when Reagan was president. And you go, they have elections, and at the end of that election, they'd sit there and go, ha, we win, and they go, I get you next time.
Yeah.
Then the election cycle comes. This time Roger would win. I got one over you. And they're going to go, we'll get you next time. But you know what they did? They were all sitting around laughing, giggling, hanging out, going to watch a game. That's what they did. It just wasn't like this. You could have a proper discussion, debate, but it has to be done with a proper decorum.
Yeah.
And I don't see that when it gets to this. It's very much, you did this, he said that, go in there, destroy his life, put him in jail for 100 years. I don't care if he slipped on a banana peel, we'll find it. I'm like, man, that's not what life was intended to be. I think life is more about highlight.
Yeah.
Football. And you win, next time I'll win. Just have fun, man. That's people, that's what you want. The goal in life is to try and help other people. You read the Bible, it's a common theme that you always help others. It's never about you. And this kind of got lost in translation with many Americans. And I say low information people, which is what these politicians love to target. Low information, ill-informed people. Unfortunately, there's many of them. You could tell by some of the jurisdictions how you break down the political districts in this country. Many of people they think they're smart, they think they know everything, but they're very low information. The mantra of vote for me because you guys have the same skin color, ethnic background, that is insane. We have to actually look at people's policies, and they don't do that. And some of that stuff also in the police departments, where if you vote for, let's say, a union president or a delegate, some of that is, hey, we're from we have the same background, we both have vowels at the end of our names, or we both like to go to the same bar. No. What are you going to do for the union members? That's what you need to look at. But people, they're low information. A lot of them are like that. And people really need to open their eyes. You need to start questioning just about everything. I'm not saying to be a conspiracy theorist, but is this the best solution for me? Does this person bring the best solution in my life where what they say and do will affect my life? Not vote for me, we're the same skin color. That's crazy. But I see a lot of these people say that. I'm going to vote for this person because that's crazy. That's it? That's the sole reason? That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree totally. And like you were saying about when Reagan was in office, I recently heard on the Federalist or somewhere, they were kind of talking about this type of attitude, and they were saying like Ted Kennedy was quoted in he liked Reagan. Of course he wanted a Democrat in office, but he said, I can't deny. He goes, yeah, I'm going to say something positive about him because, he speaks well. the country loves him, and at least he's uniting people. He said, yeah, we have different policy disagreements. And this is Ted Kennedy. He was like the lion of the Senate.
Yep.
And he's talking this way about a Republican president. Like, you'd never get that now. Never.
I think this is also the time when in America was completely different, where, Democrats would, but back then, people like Ted Kennedy or his brother, John F. Kennedy, or even Robert Kennedy would be considered a Republican today, because you look at them and go, they're anti-war, they're anti-this.
Yep.
Oh, no, that wouldn't fly in that party now. They're all about, and then they're in these crazy agendas where it's like transgenderism, and they're like shoving this down your throat. Nobody ever said that, nobody is against what you want to be. It's when you start shoving it down, let's say, kids' throats and presenting this stuff in schools. That's a problem, because you're trying to poison the mind of a young child. Let them grow up the way we all did, and let them decide what they want to be or what they want to do. Don't try poisoning them at 5 years old with this whole, you're a man, you're a baby, you're a boy, but we're gonna make you a woman.
Yeah.
Come on, that's what these people.
That's evil. That's evil.
Infiltrated, yeah, and that's your problem. So that's what's going on in America, and probably majority of the world. A lot of it, they have the same kind of issues politically, and you're just trying to get back to the middle. Can we just get back to reality, please? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. I mean, it's kind of like the boss that's at the corporation that's like, hey, man, you got to put your pronouns in your email sign off. It's like, I don't have look, this is America. It's free. I might disagree with them. I'm not actively against them or protesting them, but do I need to now tell you I have a beard, I have a family? Do I need to tell you I'm a he, him? Like, is this necessary? Yes, it is, because we have to be sensitive. It's like, no.
And now they'll come for your jobs too. They'll say, I don't like him. So, if they find out what police department you work for, be careful, Steve. They'll be like, oh, there's going to be 1,000 calls on you. And so, why? Yeah, I don't like what he said. What he said, it affects me and my family. What do you mean? You can just turn the channel off. No, we're going to, and then the calls start. Maybe they know some powerful people that are in, let's say, media, or maybe they know people that could affect, politicians, and that's it. That's what they do. This was never like that. A lot of people be like, so what? Listen, for years, Howard Stern, who people now worship, forget that this guy was one of the most misogynist, sexist people to ever be on the radio. At the same time, it was very controversial, and he was very funny, and it was innovative, and he broke through.
Dude, he said super racist stuff. Like, you couldn't believe it.
Also, yes, very, like, it would be he did a blackface thing. I mean,
right.
He had Robin next to him, and I guess he would say, okay, I'm not a racist because I have a black woman next. But it was very, like, in today's world, and times have changed. But that's how he became famous. And now here he is, the billionaire that he is, sitting on some yacht wherever he is in Long Island. And now here he is judging and thumbing his nose at people, saying, I'm better than you. This is wrong. Here's a guy that loved Donald Trump, and now when he ran for office, can't stand him, and starts saying all these crazy things about 25 years ago, and he hung out with him and saying, that's not a good thing what he did, and he does this, and what about all that time you spent together? So when you were clout chasing with him, that was okay, but now on this end, now he's no good anymore, because now you're a billionaire that's sitting on your yacht or wherever you are, thumbing your nose at the rest of us poor little people that made you famous. See, that's the kind of stuff I don't like. And I'm just saying, he's a guy that trailblazed through stuff that today would have you be jobless and probably blacklisted for many years, as many people have, Roger Stone included. And yet, you may not agree with Roger's take on things, but he has a right to speak, and if you don't like it, you just tune it out. Alex Jones, the same thing, very controversial. But they try to shut him up and try to shut him down. But he's allowed to speak just like anyone else. As long as he's not sitting there either defaming people or then you're right. Then you can shut him down. I'm just using them as an example. I'm sure there's guys on the other side that did the same thing too. I don't agree with that. Even the same with journalists. There might be journalists some days write a very favorable puff piece on you, and then they might turn around and write something that would be considered a hit piece. But you know what? They still have the freedom of their speech, and they have at least the freedom, you would think, to walk around New York City and not worry about getting punched in the face by some thug who I guess in New York City, it's just out of control crime. They have the right to feel, they're supposed to be safe. So that's the kind of things that I'm looking at. And that everybody, no matter what you look at, they're a human being and they have the right to live a free life and have the freedom of speech. And that's another thing I see they're trying to grab hold of. And that's a dangerous road we're going down, Steve. If you go down that road, you look at the countries that actually did that and what it looks like today, Venezuela being one. That's what you want that coming here. I don't.
No, hell no. You can see it too. Like every country that doesn't have the freedom of speech, the first thing they did was they took the Second Amendment, their right to have guns. They take that, and then they take the freedom of speech. And now you're at a place where in England, if you do a Facebook post, you could do 20 months in prison. But meanwhile, the guy, the immigrant that came in and raped a 14-year-old, 6 months or slap on the like. This stuff is almost I deep dive on it. I Google, is this true? Oh, it's true. And it's almost unfathomable. My wife and I often sit down in the morning, often have coffee, and we start talking about it. And it's like we just stop. We're like, we can't start our day like this because it's almost unbelievable. It is unbelievable that this is happening in the world. The one silver lining that I find right now, Sal, is I do notice that comedians are starting to joke about this stuff, and they're joking about, like, conservative edge comedians are rising in popularity, and that gives me hope because we're at the point now, and I think you'll agree, that we can't joke around. Like I came up through college with guys, all different colored people, and one of the big things that you would do is like, you would just bust each other's balls about your ethnicity. It would just, and it was hilarious. Like you would say whatever stereotypes about Irish guys, I would say about Italians and blacks and everything else. And nobody amongst dudes, we all had a good laugh. Nobody cared. And we truly loved each other. It was joking, but you can't, it was getting to the point where you can't joke.
I know. I see the same. And I know what you mean. Why? Listen, I grew up the same thing. People would do slurs against me or against people. And that's something where you're joking around and get a rise out of somebody so that you get them all fired up and then you put your arm around them. Yeah, man, I had to do that. And then you laugh it off. And then I'll tell you, that same guy you're doing that to, if somebody comes across and says something to them and they want to start a fight or whatever, you're the first guy that's going to take the first swing saying, that's my fight. I don't care what you say. This is something that someone like you is never going to get between. Or if the same person was, let's say, in a fire and he's got his hand out, he's about to burn to death, I'm coming in, grabbing his hand and pulling him out of fire. So that's what people don't see. It's just all this rhetoric. I'm telling you, once again, you go back to this mainstream media. So many people, whoever's calling the shots there, go back to where it was more in the middle. You just announce the news, which is ethically speaking, you're supposed to be truthful with that, not opinionated. And your whole show is based on all of Donald Trump's supporters are racist and all this other crap. I've seen it all over the place. Just go back to just saying what happened without saying, I think. If you're going to say, I think this and that, then it's like, our shows where we're announcing the news and giving our take. It's an opinion-based
editorial.
show.
Yeah.
Editorial. Not NBC or ABC or these, and you hear them saying, no, like The View. That show is just totally toxic, in my opinion. Just go back to making things fun. I remember when they had regular people on that show. Now, I know people actually know Whoopi Goldberg, who they talk to her in the street, and you go, this is like two different people, the one on TV and the one that people see in the street. I'm like, what the hell? So that's another thing. Be real. Don't be a fugazi. That's another problem. A lot of people do it.
Yeah, because she's a comic, so she can get gritty and joke around and take a punch, but not on the air. She's a different person. And I want to ask you the first question, but one more thing. When I visit my parents and they still have you can watch the news, like local news. Like I don't have cable. I just have whatever subscriptions, but local news is great, man. It literally, like you said, they report what happened and they don't They don't give you their opinion. I don't want your opinion. They just say, hey, this happened today, and then this happened, and this happened on this side. And they don't give you any kind of sway. They don't give you their opinion like they know. And I remember watching it last year, visiting them, and I was like, wow, this reminds me of the news like a long time ago, like the national news.
That's what you want. Just say what it is. If you're going to make something, then yeah, we make it the Sal Greco show, where it's Sal Greco's take on this. And if you like me, you're gonna you like to listen. Maybe I'm informative. I tell you something you didn't know, an angle, whatever. If you don't like it, you're not gonna listen, and that's the way it should be. Don't don't say this happened and then you interject whatever, and you basically telling people, I believe you should think like me, or you should be thinking like me, because then that's pushing your will over on people, and that doesn't work. But there's a lot of that still. That's what's going on, and it should go back to that way. And it's funny you say local, because politically speaking, I always say local is key. Local is number one.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, especially like New York or even Massachusetts, where it is crazy. He's got an illegal immigrant. You have illegal immigrants everywhere, and it's basically a migrant crime wave of unvetted, military age, single body men running around. Locally, if you just elect Donald Trump as president, that's not going to solve your problems, because you still have the same councilmen, the same mayor,
Right.
the same state assembly, the same state senator, and the governor. That part never changes. So what did you really, change in your day-to-day life? Nothing, because those guys could really put a hurting on you personally. Federally speaking, taxes, gas prices, that kind of, that's going to be highly affected. Also, national policy, foreign policies, and the flow of illegal immigration in this country. Yes, he could knock that down substantially, but day to day, can he really affect it? No. The president is important, but not, let's say, as important as some of these people make it out. Now, your mayor, though, that guy, that person, he or she can make or break your little community. Their
Absolutely.
policy, there's police officers. We know we're police officers. They have listen, go out there. You got, today we got to come back with like 10 summonses. Wait a minute. What? Oh, because this happened in this area. There was an incident. There was traffic. So people don't see, but that's what's going to hurt you. Imagine you're coming home, you're getting a ticket because there's like a referendum on you, but from the police department that they're not going to say that's unofficial, but it's official, that they need numbers because, it's coming from the top. Who's the top? Oh, the mayor's office, City Hall. They're not gonna officially ever admit that, but we've been there. I know the game. And where does that come from? That's local politics. So, because it was in the media and we look bad. Do you see? That's how the world works. It's not the president. It's not going to work that way. Obviously, we've had a national embarrassment for 4 years. The guy looks like he checked out a long time ago. But unfortunately, most of America, a lot must have been low information and voted on their feelings instead of reality, and you got what you got. Hopefully, they don't do that this time around. But again, look at that local down ballot. Look what's going on in your area. Because if you just vote like blindly or just think, oh, president, that's it, we're good. That's the wrong way to think. That's why we have the issues that we have today in many jurisdictions.
Absolutely. I think you're right. And I think you should concentrate on the sheriff of your county, the mayor, city council, and the chiefs of police. I mean, hyper local, that's your sphere. That's the most you're going to be influenced with those guys. Absolutely. 100%. Sal, can you tell us, go back to your early days on the force. Can you tell us about your first hot call, the first call that really got your blood going?
Probably in the first couple of days. I started my career in Crown Heights, which is, that's where they have Juve. You saw that happen just this past week. You saw Juve out there. I was there. We were assigned to what was called IRT, which is basically a high visibility foot post. And they want an activity, but, your first days, they're just telling you, hey, listen, kid.
Right.
After the first thing they told me was I didn't know anything. I didn't have a partner with me. They just threw me on the street and go, you're going to figure it out. You're a big guy. You're 6'3". You'll figure it out.
Jeez.
That's what they told me, First day, luckily, nothing happened. I wasn't nervous. I just I don't know, whatever. I hope nothing major comes around. And then as the days progressed, there were incidents. I remember the first arrest was somebody with a suspended license. We had a checkpoint, which I'm so highly against that kind of stuff. At that time, they didn't come up with the laws, which they did later on, and say, listen, the checkpoints are virtually almost illegal because you have to announce this to the public. They never do. They just have a spot checkpoint. Nobody knows. So they're entrapping people, basically. So they changed that. But at that time, that didn't happen. So we had it. And first guy that we were running names to see if they were suspended, because that's what you do. And one guy was suspended. That was their first arrest. Took me a while because I didn't know exactly how he was doing everything right paperwork wise. in a short amount of time, though, I learned real quick. That's the way I was, and off to the races. That's basically what it became. I became a guy that was out there, and I did a little bit of everything. The main thing I did was a lot of arrests, a lot of DWI arrests. I was a community-based guy, so I was very friendly with the stores, and not like what you're seeing where you're hearing all these allegations. The stores were going in there. Is everything okay here, Joe? Yeah, he's the gas station. Listen, I for months I heard that XYZ happened. The minute they saw me there at 4 in the morning till, let's say, 4:20, just in the car with my hands folded like this, those guys that were going around there trying to cause this guy a problem, they stopped coming around. Sometimes I even caught him doing something stupid and wrote what we called a criminal court summons, which was, the guy like smoking a cigarette near his car near a gas pump. And it was the same clown that was also doing stuff all night that this guy was complaining about, but he never called the precinct. So stuff like that mattered to me because these are the little people that make your community. The gas station, the 7-Eleven, the little bodega, that guy. You're not going in there saying, give me a free sandwich. You always paid for everything. We're going in there saying, nobody's bothering you, right? Everything okay? And if they do, they'll let you know. They might wink at you because they're afraid because, in the streets, they say snitches get stitches. But you know what? It's not about being snitches. It's about the guy has a business. And he shouldn't have to live in fear or pay money to some thug in the street for protection when the thugs are running the street, that's the kind of atmosphere we had at that time. This is now 16, 17 years ago when I first started. So that's what was going on at that time. And that's the stuff that I like to do. And I think that police, that if you're in a local jurisdiction like that and you're not like, let's say, highway, even in highway, you always stop in somewhere and say, is everything okay? You just want to make sure that the little guy who's running a business is okay. Because your number one priority as a cop is public safety. So you do a little bit of everything. And then, of course, I pull people over. They were drunk. It is what it is. That was the bread and butter, we'll say. But there's more to policing than just that. And I like to do a little bit of that all the time. In fact, even before, so we always had a thing. I worked night shift. So if you start at 10 at night, could you get a DWI right away? Probably, maybe, but most of the time it's after 11, midnight. You know why? Because they're coming out of nightclubs and stuff. So in between this time, he would stop off somewhere and make sure that, is this store, are you okay? Like, that's what I would do. You make those rounds. I did that when I worked in the tail end at Manhattan in a traffic unit. Before that, I did the same thing when I worked in Brooklyn. And then I would go right into what I was doing. Sometimes I go to I worked in Coney Island. I would go to the beach. I'd find 30 people lighting fires, doing all kinds of stuff. Everybody got summonses. There was no mercy for these people. Came from a completely different area to light a fire where homes were right across the street and could smell this stuff and couldn't sleep all night. And they're paying a lot of money to live there. And this beach, that's not really a beach, after I believe 9 p.m. or whatever, you're not even supposed to be on it. They're singing there. You could hear it. You could hear it from the street. And I would hit these guys with as many summons as you could. Whatever was allowed to be in the Parks Department, you're not allowed to be there because the Parks Department didn't enforce this. So these were issues that matter to me. Quality of life.
Sure.
Your quality of life is being affected. You know why? You can't sleep because it smells like smoke in your house all night because these guys. So these were things I took an action on. And then after that, I would go get my DWI. None of those guys had warrants. So someday you got to make that arrest at that time. So those were the issues that mattered to me, especially as a cop. What was the number one thing? The people. They would see my car. They knew who I was right away. They would start cheering. You know why? Like, I know exactly what you're doing, man. He goes, good for you. Go in there. I saw them. And you see the plates of the cars parked there. You're in Coney Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Where are you from? Yeah, I'm from over there. So what the hell are you doing in Coney Island? Why can't you just do this where you live? There's no houses. This is a residential area, not a forest, not a place where it's, the suburbs. You're in a residential area. There's houses right here, a strip of them. They can't stand when you guys come here. You're not from this neighborhood. There's a time frame, guys. They got the message after a while, but it was still always a problem that would recede and come back. So it was always an ongoing thing. But these were the things I cared about, Steve. That's what matters as a cop, is the people. The people are what matters, not me sitting there, pounding my chest or whatever. It was nice. You got all these fancy awards behind me, things I earned. But that's what matters, is the lives that you affected. those businesses. That's what kept the community going. It's the community.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, brother. I love that you said that because I get a buddy who lives in Greenpoint and he manages a big club down there and very successful. But I know the people there in the neighborhoods want a neighborhood cop. You know what I mean? They want someone who's like checking in like that. I'm not sure that's going on anymore, but like they want someone who's like actually has a vested interest in like checks in like, hey, what do you need? What's going on? Like that's kind of how you can accomplish a small town policing model, which is hard to scale, but you can do that with what you were doing.
You could do it. You could, and even in New York City, you could do that. And because the little man needs to know that people care, especially police or their community leaders, because to be a city councilman, stuff like that, they care. Because who are they going to go to when they're in trouble? Or where they want to be. If there's good things that happen, and they might want to talk to people to hold an event or something or sponsor something, that's who they're going to go to. That's kind of what community affairs does, but lately you've been hearing in the New York City Police Department exactly what they've been involved in. So it casts a big shadow over everything. And this isn't the era of Sal Greco walking into the 7-Eleven to buy a Power Crunch bar and talking to the guy for 10 minutes to find out if everything's okay. These guys were doing other things. And it's always these guys up top too, because they're just corrupt from the top, and that seems to be the problem we're seeing. But again, it's the people you elect. If they're corrupt, who do you think they're going to hire underneath them? That's the problem, and people get rope-a-doped into voting for them again with that identity politics and all that stuff. Instead of looking at how is this really going to affect me? Something I might be. Why don't people? I would hope people would do this. I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, whatever it is I grew up. I'm a conservative. But you know what? Certain conservatives, their ideology or that policy doesn't align with what I'm believing. Maybe it's time I change or vote the other way. Maybe there is a conservative, moderate Democrat. Then you could do it. But most of the time it's the other way. It's the liberal that just can't get away from like singing Kumbaya and thinking that the world is fine. Climate change and all this stuff that has been proven that doesn't really work. I don't know. But they just keep voting. These people promise them the world or free handouts, and then nothing ever happens. And then 3 years later, they come back around, feed you the same line of garbage, and eat it. Again, it's like press the repeat button. And you would think at a certain point you go, what am I doing? No, it doesn't. But that's the problem. And I'm just saying, you got to stop. Get out of that mode where it's like, the same thing on repeat and go, something's wrong here. What's going on? You just think long enough, you're going to hear what I'm saying. You're going to say, that guy is right. This is the way I was on the job. You got to think outside the box. You can't be they put you in a box. They want you in a box because then you just like basically they think of you like an animal. You come over, here's a little treat or whatever. And then, okay, shoo. You do it with a dog. You do it with a, ferrets don't exist. But if you had a ferret, you have a hamster. What do? That's why the politicians see you.
Yeah.
They think dumb, stupid, and docile, and they're getting enriched. And that's what I'm out to just blow open and show that some of these people do not have the best interest of the public. And that's the number one goal. You're in there to do what I was doing as the cop. You walk in the store. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Joe. While you're walking in, I'm buying a protein. Like I'm eating like maybe more than one, actually. I probably bought like 3 or 4 at that. But I'm saying I bought these protein bars, and I'm talking. It's just I want to see that they're okay. That's the point. That's community, not going out there and trying to be like Joe Cop or something where you're a superhero. You got to mix it in. That's what I'm saying. The same thing goes in politics. It kind of goes together, law enforcement and politics.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That the part about them just putting you on the road is it kind of jives with an experience I had where I when I was going to be a cop in Massachusetts, they send you to like a National Guard like old building where they have like the obstacle course set up where you have to run the obstacles and all that. So I'm in line waiting for my turn to run the obstacle, and I'm all nervous, and I'm like, oh my gosh, of course I'm like 25, so I'm like, I can do it, but you're still nervous because you got to remember all the stuff. And I'm in line, and the guy in front of me is NYPD guy, and he's coming up to work in Mass, so he has to pass that and whatever else our standards make him do. And we chat for a while, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I got on the job at NYPD and went to the academy, and I go, what was it like, brother? Like, what was it? What did they have you doing? And he's like, day one, they put me on foot patrol, and I had, and it was right after 9/11. So he's like, I had a gas mask like on my side, and I would just walk the neighborhoods and take like handwritten reports. And then at the end of the day, a cruiser would get me, and I would, go back. And I was like, what was the field training like? And he's like, not too much. And to me, which is mind blowing, because like New York's one of the biggest cities in the country, right? With a lot going on. And it didn't seem like the field training or like the break-in period was like all that long. And it sounds like you had the same experience.
Mm-hmm. It didn't. You know what? You have to be on your toes. And I think police officers usually are more on their toes than the regular person, whether you call them, civilians. The cop will always be on his toes. And in my instances, I learned quick. You know why? But I don't know if they could teach you this, because you have to have the instincts to jump on something or realize something. Sometimes you're going to be slow. Sometimes you'll be fast. Depends. But as time goes on, the more you're in this scenery, we'll say, your instincts, everything's just quick. And I got really quick as time went on. Obviously, in the beginning, everybody makes a mistake. Sometimes there was an incident that I didn't jump in right away because, I was worried about, I was on probation and stuff. But anyway, that incident ended up that all those cops got in trouble technically. And I never did, because that hesitation actually is the right move. But instinctively, I didn't know that at the time. But instincts, usually when you have to know what to do and what to say. And what I learned is the other thing was, with all the arrests I made, I was living at the courthouse, because you have cases, you go down there. And when I was down there, I actually learned by watching. I watched what lawyers said. I watched what they were doing, what they were saying, how the cases were. And just because I had a DWI, I saw they had other cases. So you sit there and you watch. I listen to defense. I listen to the jurors. And that's how I picked everything up. I actually, to this day, always think in situations, well, I could go forward with this. You pull a guy over, you're going to pull him over, X, Y, Z. But remember, as you're doing this, it's very hard. I don't know if other people could do this, but as I'm doing this, as I'm talking to him, I am hearing a defense attorney say,
grilling you,
stop my client, blah, 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 and that's how I go about it. So the reason all my cases were found guilty, there was no avenues to say, question me, or say, because there's nothing there. And then when the body cameras came out, it was even more airtight, because they would see that it was basically almost like a routine I had that I had down. And you could tell by the way I spoke, the way I did it, man, this guy knows what he's doing. And it's almost like, it's like coming out of a courthouse and doing exactly what a lawyer or your prosecutor or a prosecutor or a judge tells you to do. Because you also got to follow the court's rules. Every judge has their own little quirk. So that was another thing I got used to. And basically, that's how you handle it. You got to follow the law, know what you're doing, know what you're saying, know that, oh, you're right. You can't just say, I saw weed, and say, you can't search people for that. I don't know, some guys, but I never did that. If it was out in the open, if you did this like in an inventory, an investigative search of the car, when you're having an inventory meeting, once he's arrested, you then bring the car back, that's when you're going to take his car and search incident to lawful arrest. There was a small bag of marijuana in the glove compartment. Can I open that? No, you can't just go, I want to go in the car and do that. I know some guys got in trouble for doing crazy stuff, but this is the things you have to learn and know, like right away. So these are the things that I got as, I learned real quick, real fast, and you apply this to what you're doing, and you'll be safe and you'll be good. I don't know if proactive policing is something that's working in New York City with their policies and the way the NYPD is today. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I hope cops don't get in trouble for trying to do their job. That happens. Some cops go overzealous, they're crazy, and I don't know what they're trying to prove. And then there's political things where they just become politicized. And I have a problem with that stuff. And so I don't know if proactive policing is how a cop thinks as a New York City cop, if he's saying, man, I don't know if it's worth me doing this. I could lose my job, pension, end up in jail. Or that's not what the politicians want me to do, because I've seen a lot of guys get destroyed, internally. There's discipline. So At that time, that worked, and that's what kept New York safe, whether people want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
Proactive policing, what we call intrusive policing, it works as long as you're not overzealous. You don't act like a criminal yourself as a cop. Just do what I'm saying. Those steps I just said, follow them, and you'll be all right. Just always think like a lawyer. What
Yeah.
would a lawyer do? And it's funny because they said FBI, usually the agents are like lawyers. A lot of them, where they go out there and try to put their hands on or affect their arrest. I don't know. Some of them do it, others don't. They'll hire the U.S. Marshals to do that job because they don't want to get their own hands dirty. But so they think like a lawyer, but you have to actually follow through and be also the one to put your hands on. So nothing's ever better than when you do it yourself. That's the best way I can describe it. I
Yeah.
observed. Blah. That's the story. I observed whatever. I affected the arrest. That's what you want to say. You don't want to be the guy hanging back and seeing things. I always want to be the guy in the middle because on that stand, nothing's better than saying, no, I did it personally. I did this personally because it's your word and it's your name on the documents. It's you that did everything. I typed it in.
Yeah.
It was always me doing everything. That was the best way to do it. So if I was still on the job today, that's what I would preach.
Yeah. I mean, you know as well as I do that nothing makes you more careful as a cop than the first time a defense attorney makes you look like a horse's ass. Because you don't really know what's coming, and if you're not paying attention, or you're not sitting on court cases and hearing how they question people. They can make you all yes and no answers. They will go. I've had attorneys like good attorneys like I've had them ask me like, Sergeant Gould, do you know what this acronym is? NHSTA or whatever. It's like National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They're the ones that set the standard for field sobriety. And I'm like, not off the top of my head. They're going deep. They're like they'll start deep, and they'll ask you a million questions. I had and you won't always necessarily lose because of it, but they will make you look dumb. Like I've had them like ask about like, oh well, there was there was empty beer cans here in your report in the tow inventory, and did you bring those to court today? Well, in this particular instance, I forgot. I was like, they're like, where are they? I'm like, evidence locker. Well, isn't it important to keep track of your evidence? And I actually won this case, but they made me look like a complete idiot.
They want to make you that
because you can't argue. You can't start lashing out because then you look like, oh, this guy's not reasonable. You just have to sit there in your suit and tie.
And I know the game, but that your answer would be, well, it's the department procedure, which is what I follow, that you have to keep it in the locker, and in order to preserve it, you would have had to call it in. That's what I would say. That's exactly how I would. He's going to try to get you riled up to get into your again. They want to play on your emotions. Politicians, lawyers, they just want your emotion. You got to just stay calm and be like, all right, I made those mistakes myself because sometimes they ask the same repeated things. I've been in internal investigations where they ask the same things and you're like, I just answered this 5 seconds ago. How is this even relevant? But that's what they do because they want to get you on nerve, because if you're calm, you're not going to make any mistakes. But if they get under your skin when they ask you these stupid things, and you go, but then you got to be careful not to be snarky because I could do that. So you gotta have a perfect balance. But it's always, if you've done everything right, they have no avenue to really go on. Did you see my client do this? Did you see that? What did you exactly see? I see you wrote this down. Yeah, it's all true. Oh, well, and there's going to be a gotcha question that's really not it, but it still pertains to it. They're going to make it sound as if it was 100% illegal when it wasn't. And you're just going to say, yeah, that's what we did. Or was it, what's the big one? Did you speak to anyone else prior to this? And they expect you to say no, which was a lie. Yes. Who would you speak to? The prosecutor right there. And then you hear silence. Okay. And then they just go to the next question.
Right.
If you say no, you just lied. You understand? And then your credibility's shot. But that's the gotcha moment. Sometimes you'll see it. Did you speak to anyone else in this case? And if you say no, that's a lie because you did. You spoke to the prosecutor, right? But that would be one of those gotcha moments. So you got to remember that. It's stupid stuff like that. It's ridiculous. But listen, I don't blame them either, because some defense attorney, I've seen some crazy guys do some crazy corrupt stuff. So it is what it is. It's the game. Just know how to play it. That's the best way I could describe it.
Know what happened to me 6 months ago? I went through a trial. I got cross-examined. The guy was hammering me. afterwards he comes up, and this is kind of speaking to what you said about be careful. We're in the lobby of the courthouse, and he goes, shakes the defense attorney comes over to shake my hand. It's never happened to me, and he goes, "Great job on the stand." He goes, "But I have to tell you, I knew you were going to do a good job." And I go, "Why is that?" He goes, "Me and everybody at the office have been listening to your podcasts, and we know that you know how to talk." Mm-hmm. And I thought my face must have went white. I was like, these guys, these young attorneys, they are fully aware of social media, and all they had to do was Google me, and they found the podcast, and they had all been listening to episodes of Things Police See in the office. And I was crapping my pants, man. I was like, and he was very complimentary. He's like, the show's great, blah, 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 whatever. We've really been enjoying it, but we were doing our research on you. This is for a DUI.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are going deep now. They're looking to get me on an ethical thing, probably. You know what I mean? Or
like I told you, I think it's only department wide. If you're allowed to have your own show, I think as long as you don't talk about an official case aside. I don't know the technical. I remember in the New York City Police Departments like that. Apparently now, though, it's a whole nother game. They're threatening journalists. It's all
right. I only talk about things that are public record, like closed cases.
But I remember back, when I was on the job, I didn't do this whole social media thing. You're not supposed to as a police officer, but apparently that changed too. But so they would just come up to me and go, you have a reputation, and your reputation precedes you. He goes, you're on the stand. He goes, I like you as a person. You are one of the most honest guys that is on this job. And even though I'm representing this guy, whatever, I'm thankful that you're a guy like you is out there. That's what a lot of guys would say that. And then I would see these guys later on. They hang out at the same places. I don't go. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink in it. So I see where they would go. They go to the same places and huddle up. But outside of that, I would talk to these attorneys and like that. And it's just, listen, that's business in there. That's what they basically letting you know that's business. And they personally probably don't like when they hear about corrupt cop. But in my instance, none of them, they said, I've never seen a guy that's so straightforward, and you're just a guy that's on everything and there's no holes to poke through.
Right.
There really was. I'd be honest, Steve. I made sure I was very thorough. As the word they used down at the district attorney's office was, Mr. Greco is very meticulous with his paperwork. And
that's good.
That's where they trip you up. Did you write this? I know the DWI, the paperwork would be, something you would write scratch no if you put no twice on something, because I remember there was 7 papers we had to fill out, and one of them, some of the stuff is almost redundant, but if you press no or put a line across it, they could say, what is this? So you have to make sure that whole thing was always 100% accurate. There's the test too. Remember they do the walk and turn, I forgot what it was called, but I actually got trained for that also. So these are things they could tell. Where'd you get trained? How? When? What's the date? What's the time? You got to know this stuff. And it's on the paperwork as well. So I always wrote it down, so it was never any issues. And also your memo book, which was what you write. So we had the phones, and it's either your phone now or back then it was a memo book. They literally told me, Sal, there's no holes in anything you do. It's almost like it's like a press repeat button. And I go, that's kind of how I like it. It's the same things. And if it was a different kind of arrest, it's the same thing. You can't ever get in trouble for a ton of information. What you can get in trouble for is leaving out some information. That's how you have to look at it. More is always better, even if it's a lot of work. But are you going to get in trouble for it? No. And in the end, does it help you? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sal, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with on the job in New York?
Hurricane Sandy was something that people saw coming, but I got trapped in. I worked in Coney Island. You could check out the time frame who was in charge of the command at that time. It was an inspector that was very indecisive over things and ended up in a corruption scandal himself a few years back, and was very indecisive of what to do. You're in a direct line of where if the dam breaks, the beach was down the street. If that breaks and the water starts coming in, it's a flood zone. You're trapped. So what happens is he doesn't know what to do. Does he keep us in the building? Does he put us out there? There was many mistakes. So you had a lifeboat, the NYPD lifeboat. You let cops go on there That thing ended up saving 2 cops' life because they had this boat. The water did break. It did start to flood. And that boat they had to get on as the water came in to survive. Otherwise, the water came up to where the car was. The car was trashed. So we were in the building, and all of a sudden the wall downstairs cracks. The foundation cracked. That building still standing today, 2951 West 8th Street. The foundation is cracked, just so everyone understands. It was from Sandy. The water came in the building. And we had to all get outside. And by that time, the water rushed so fast that I believe the water reached me here. Now, I'm 6'3", so that's probably like 6 feet of water.
Wow.
You can't really swim out of there. There's no such thing as the current will drag you you'll go into the Atlantic Ocean. So everybody technically had to hold hands. And there's one building in between. You have the police department, 2951. Then there's next door the fire department. And then there's a huge gap where there's a driving parking lot is traffic court, the Traffic Violations Bureau. But there's a huge parking lot. There was a current that would have, if you're not holding hands, if you're 5 feet tall like some female cops were, you're gone. I don't know if you're going to be able to swim because it's so strong and you have a gun belt on and your body armor. So we had to form this line, including the inspector, and everybody, and got past that point because that's where the water receded. And then get to the bus that's down the street, and then you get into the mainland because the water receded up to a certain point all the way up the block. So
dude, that's terrifying.
Yeah, we got to another command. Everybody was safe. Some cops that were shorter jumped on other cops' backs, and they got them past that point. I didn't ever had an issue. I was too tall. The only part was that part you could feel the current, but it never got wind because when you're holding hands, the current can't pull you, and we were set. I got past that, and then the body armor was trashed. But luckily, I actually had another body armor that was registered in the police department. I had 2. I bought my own and the one that they had given me from the academy. So I used the other one, and the gun, which you would believe is rusted underwater with salt water, I took it to the gun range the next day, got it out. I never missed a beat. I was up back to work in 24 hours after. I had 1 day off, and I went the next day. While many other officers' guns were done. I got luck. I went there. They cleaned it out right away, and it was good. They said, you're good to go. So I never missed a beat despite all of that. And it was months and months later, they finally brought us back to that precinct and was fully operational. We were working out of the 61st precinct for a few months. That's in Sheepshead Bay, which is the next precinct over, because Coney Island, the building was wrecked. So was the building down the street, further down on West 24th Street. There's housing, PSA 1. That building was damaged, and they fixed it. It's now brand new, but the water also receded into there. So that's something I can never forget. That's the first time I actually mentioned this entire incident in its entirety, how it occurred. But I lost my personal vehicle. Many officers did. The water was so high, cars were actually going down the street. That's what had happened down West 8th Street. It was crazy. That was one of the most crazy things I could tell. It felt like a surreal movie moment. Oh, I was living right there. The car, like I was right here, and I watched the car go by me. I go, look at that. What the hell? And then that's the current taking a car that weighs a couple of 100 pounds, if not more.
Damn, that's nuts. And I guess the commander of that, or the you call him inspector or whatever, he could have evacuated you guys, but he decided to stay.
Yes. Yep. He stayed when he knew, very indecisive of what to do. You could have even gone to the platform where the train station was. He did not do that. Nothing. He thought about going to the roof. How could you go to the roof of a building that you heard? Then the foundation cracked, because the first thing people were saying is, this building going to survive a rush of the water current? That's the Atlantic Ocean. It's not a river. And that's what happened. The Atlantic Ocean receded into the street. So yeah, that was like a surreal moment. And everyone, we all survived it. Nobody was seriously hurt, but it was, it was. You look back and go, wow, how could you even be put in this situation? And again, it's inept leadership. And there's a lot of that in the New York City Police Department and many other agencies. And I'm here to point that out, to make sure that these kind of people aren't in charge of anything, probably not even in charge of their own households. They shouldn't, they need to be like in almost in a boot camp and taught, this is how you lead. This is how you lead, not this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Damn it, that is insane. Sal, can you tell us about the most intense or terrifying call you went on?
Discovering a dead baby was the worst. I'll never
Oof.
forget it. And it was a whole thing. It was a 14-year-old girl. She was missing, and they called because she was in a hospital. They found a placenta, and they're like, "We can't find a baby though." She didn't want to talk about it, so her father called, opened the door to the house, and we went in there. We looked around, and then next thing you know, in a bowling bag in the corner, who I was working with at the time, who was actually he was in the Navy. He looked at the bag. He put his head down and it says, "Go take a look." And he walked away. I went over with the light, and there it was.
Oh my gosh.
Dead. We don't know if it was stillborn. You don't know. That becomes now a crime scene, and she's 14, so she'll never be charged as a felon, and all. It's like juvenile. It's not even on your record. And their own the parents said, if you looked at her, she looked like the average child. She had no issue. She was a very athletic girl. So being pregnant never showed. Nobody could tell that she was ever pregnant at any moment. And all she had to do was open her mouth, because that destroyed her family. That had happened the way it did, and it didn't have to be that way. But that was the worst thing I've ever had to roll into, was seeing that bowling bag with that baby dead in there.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible, brother. And the mom and dad were still together? It was like a normal household?
It was a normal household that nobody understood why this girl with a perfect little family out in Coney Island, why they would do that. I never understood it either. And they went to go talk to her or whatever, and they said this is just like basically it's like a juvenile thing. You're lucky if anything really happens. You're 14 years old, so that's how the laws work in New York. But basically, what happened there? She had this baby. We don't know if it was stillborn. We don't know if she did something, because apparently she had it in her house and nobody knew anything.
Wow.
So you don't know exactly. I didn't know the exact details. And then after that, it was back to normal the next day, because whoever took that case, I'm only the respondent officer. I'm not the guy that handles it. So I really don't know what happened after that, other than I said that is probably the worst thing I'm ever going to have to deal with in my career. I hope to never see that again.
Absolutely. And does NYPD have any kind of, they offer counseling for that, or is there any checkup on you?
They do, because they have a unit. At that time, they had a unit, and obviously, the family's going to need a lot of consoling there, and there's a lot of deep-rooted issues. If something like that, you don't even want to tell your parents you've been pregnant for 9 months, so somehow it doesn't even show. That's incredible. So, but they're young, 14, young child. That's another thing that goes on in this country nobody likes to talk about. So, and there it was. And that wasn't even like, how these people screamed about abortions and stuff. There's something that was a stillborn child, or it's stillborn or something else. But nobody could attest to ever hearing a scream from a baby in the household. So what happened there, I don't know. Only that she would be charged as a juvenile, and nothing happens with that at 14 years old. It's just in a year or two, it gets expunged off your record, I believe.
Damn, man, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Sorry you had to experience that, brother. That is that all the ones those are always the heaviest on the show when it has to do with babies or children,
Yeah, it sticks with you. I can still see it in the back. I just never. It was an image that never, But it's one thing I learned on that job is I hate to say it, many times it's like you feel like you're almost emotionless. I've seen the dead body. I've walked into a crime scene. A guy got a head blown off, but they just, just it is what a woman is a saying on the job. They said, "It is what it is." And the only time now that made me human is the time I've been off the job.
Yeah.
You want to go from being dehumanized back to being a human being again, and you have some kind of feeling, some kind of emotion. But little part of me is always still that cock where that's just like, okay, like there's no emotion in anything. Okay, what are you gonna do? You find out some, what are you just? There's nothing like. What can I possibly do to have changed what happened? I'm a poor guy. I have to be either the poor guy to tell you what had happened, or I'm the responding guy to see something that I hope you never have to walk into. And that's the job. That's part of the job nobody tells you about, but it is. It is. I'm sure everybody at one point or another, if you're a cop, has had to experience that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like a unsurmountable, impossible task almost to ask a human being, especially in a major city, to experience things like that over and over again. That's what drives me nuts with what every state is doing with retirement, where it used to be like 20 and out, 25 and out. They just keep raising the age. In Massachusetts, they'll let you work till you're 65. You can't get 80% until you put 32 years in. It's like I mean, you want old men, patrolmen? I mean, is that what you want? These people who are like, going to all these traumas all these years, and you finally let them go so they can have a meager retirement. It's nuts.
Yeah, that seems to be a depending, again, once we go back to what I originally had said before, depending on certain districts, you really need to wonder why they keep electing the same thing. And also be wary of how they're electing people, because there's a lot of shenanigans in the background where you hear stories, nobody ever wants to actually investigate something like that. But when they say there's kind of fraud, and I'm not talking about what you heard for years, but I'm talking about voter rolls. Certain people, listen, I could tell you dead people. I watched, I personally was there when they were voting, and I watched a guy vote that I know was an illegal immigrant because I had stopped him the week prior, and he gave me an ID that was from another country, and he said, "I'm not from like that," and I saw him vote. I'm sure at that time it was Obama versus Romney. He's not voting for Mitt Romney. I can tell you. So that's the kind of stuff that go. I'm just saying, be careful. They pulled me off the election detail, by the way, when that happened. Because I called in. I says, why is this guy voting? He's not a citizen. How is that allowed? He walks in. It was all for guys. And I'm sitting there, and I was just supposed to collect the votes. I go, well, yeah. I wonder how many votes, how many people like that are voting in New York. And this was 2012. So just think about it. Just be wary of what you're seeing. That's all I'm saying. And be cognizant, of your leaders in office and what's going on, and start questioning, how is it that nothing ever changes here, even though everyone is complaining about it? How is that? I'm sure everybody in Boston complains about things. So how is the same Democrat Party people getting voted in? Are you either that blind or not thinking or on the take, or what is it? Because then you complain about it all day long, how you hate this mayor, but you don't do anything about it because then you vote for the next Democrat. Clearly, my idea is this part doesn't change. Like these people keep doing this to us. I'm going to go and at least for once vote on the other side, because maybe these guys bring an alternate reality to us, something that could be alternative. No, they just keep voting one way. I think there's something more than what meets the eye there, because it just seems odd that people would just keep doing the same thing and then complain about it.
Yeah, I've already heard that, like, states like Massachusetts are giving licenses to illegal people. So what do you need when you go to vote some places? A license and a utility bill. Well, you can get both those things as an illegal immigrant. And you can have a residence in Massachusetts and be illegal.
You also get a license now.
Yeah. So it's just, like you said, it's like you'd be a fool to think that this isn't happening. Because it is. Sal, I know you got to go. You got a tight schedule. Can you just give us, I'm going to skip to the last question, advice to new police officers? It's a big question on the show. A lot of people thinking about being cops. Listen to you guys tell your stories and your experiences. What would you tell a new cop going in?
If you're actually going to be crazy enough to do it in 2024, starting in 2024, but if you're actually going to do it, you need to listen to the oldest of old timers. That would be people that were probably on either before my time or around my time. That's early 2000s and 90s. I don't know if they're still around. 2010, because now 15 years later, you have this new batch. You need to be cognizant of who's in charge, what your policies are, and then not everybody's going to be your friend. You're going to see people that were your friends change on you. You're going to see people try to get you involved in things that are probably not where a police officer should be. And don't follow the crowd. be your own man. I know they say, or be your own woman. I know they're going to tell you, oh, we're all going out to this place or whatever. Don't, like what you're hearing in New York City, don't be hanging out at a shady place that everybody tells you, yeah, blah, 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 but all the cops are there. No. Go to work, punch in, punch out. You have family, you have friends. I liked it better when all the friends I had were not cops.
Yeah.
I didn't really hang out with other cops, and that's how I stay out of trouble. Because usually when everybody gets together, something crazy happens. It always does. I'm sure you heard about, you have the Karen Reed case there in Massachusetts. That's police and that. See what I mean? Don't minimize your group. It's a tight-knit group. So if you have friends, how many fingers you have on one hand, right? One hand. That's how many close friends you should have on the job that you trust with anything. If you have too many, I'm just telling you, don't be surprised if then you get called in for nonsense or they're trying to set you up. It's a dirty business. You need to survive it. Also, you have to learn, be on your toes, have good instincts, stay focused, don't get reeled into anything. Don't let people in the street reel you into anything. It's kind of like, I hate to say it, it's like the underworld and you're wearing a suit at the same time trying to be a political. Very hard to do because you won't be allowed to do anything. Also, don't be posting anything on social media. Be very careful what you post on there. You may not get in trouble for that today. 10 years from now, they're going to pull that up on you. Hey, officer, you would don't. And then also defense attorneys are looking for that stuff too, to basically critique you and try to make you look like a fool the way we just discussed prior.
Yep.
At my time, it was just trying to discredit you or whatever you wrote on a piece of paper. In today's world, they'll just be like, so is this you on Instagram and you got a drink in your hand? Don't be the one. Just don't do it. It's a tough life. I highly do not recommend it. I'd say go be a lawyer. Go join a federal agency where it's a little more safer at least. And you're not under so much scrutiny, although there is scrutiny. But stay tough and stay focused. And remember, be cognizant of your surroundings. It's a pit of snakes, and you have to survive it at least 20 some odd years. So good luck to you.
Sal Greco, honor to have you on the show, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm not even asking to hang out when I do the outro because I know you got another appearance coming up. But let's keep in touch, man. Anything you got going on, you're a friend of the show now, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to give you a plug over here.
Oh, thank you. Folks, like you said before, check out YouTube, The Sal Greco Show, same on Rumble, all the other major platforms. You could give it a rating, download it. And I cover a lot of things. I like New York City politics. You heard a little bit here. Like to talk about sports. I'm not just all about politics or law enforcement, but I like to bring reality and just think of me as a guy who would sit around at a coffee table and espresso in a coffee house. That's the kind of guy I am. And I like to work out a lot too.
Hell yeah.
And don't hate on me because I'm a Mets fan. I am a Mets fan, but don't hate on that. I mean, we're lovable losers.
Guys, I could listen to Sal all day. I love the New York accent too. He's got great points of view. I love that. The Boston and New York accent to me is it's almost the same thing. I love it. All the links to follow Sal and check out his show will be in the show notes. Sal, once again, thank you so much for coming on, sir.
Thank you, brother. Good to be here.
All right, take care. God bless you. The great Sal Greco, ladies and gentlemen. Super fun interview. So glad that he came on. This is a time in the show where I think the show Patreon supporters. You could be one. You could really be one if you so wished. Who I'm talking about is Lisa G, ladies and gentlemen. John and Aaron, Kate, love you guys. See you at church. Dylan Mosher, the great John Jordan, Kyler, not Pierre, everybody. Detective Nick Adams, the great Michael Roach of Roach Machines AI Solutions. Check him out. Jamin Jack, that's Captain Jamin Jack to you. Security 101, check him out. George Karyotis, love you, brother. Thank you for supporting. Justin King, Paul Maloney, everybody. J.A. Family and Company, love you guys. The great Jessica King, the great Jason Labrie, everybody. Zachary Fleet, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff Ronald Long, ladies and gentlemen. Adam McMahon, the great Mark Luckoff. Nancy Hammond, everybody. Zach Haney, the great Brad Thompson. Kyle Roberts, everybody. Elliot Sykes. None other than the great Elliot Sykes. Dave Ellman, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Tolles, the great Richard Tolles. Keep on trucking, my man. Raymond Arsenault, everybody. Doug and Kelly Newman. See you at church. Iceman, Motorcop Chronicles. Check out his podcast. Dan Carlson from Burleyboard. Scott Young. Tom Connell, everybody. Dennis Carrasquillo. George Tessier. Iceman. Oh, already did him. Sorry, brother. Iceman, check him out again. Greg Gadboy, the great Ben Peters. Tammy Walsh, holding down a dispatch. Sean Clifford, Sasha McNabb, Jason Lau, the great Lauren Simpson, Jake Pinito, everybody. John Shoemaker, James Rose, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, the great William James Long. That's Deputy William James Long to you. Thank you very much. Andy Biggs, the great and powerful Andy Biggs. Chris June, Adam Mihal, the great Gary Steiner, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Guys, thank you so much for the support. I truly appreciate it. I'm not joking. When I get a notification that someone has joined Patreon, is supporting, even if it's a free trial just to check it out, I get so excited. Thank you so much for that. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.